She shoved the barrel in my daughter's face and smiled like she was collecting rent. "You pay what you owe, or I'll make sure you and your little brat disappear from this street," Karen hissed, the HOA badge on her chest glittering like a joke. My daughter froze, eyes huge, the stuffed rabbit slipping from her small hands. Neighbors pressed against their windows. The world narrowed to that gun, the cold metal so close I could see my girl's breath fog the barrel. I did one thing I hadn't planned. I kept my voice steady. "Put the gun down," I said, slow and calm, because screaming would have been a show for her. Karen laughed, loud and cruel. "We have authority. You owe fines. We collect in person now." She took a step forward. I moved faster, not with a shout, but with a phone in my hand and a plan I'd been stitching together for weeks. 2 nights earlier, I'd installed a camera on the porch, hidden under the eaves after her first fake notice arrived. I'd also kept every one of her fines in a folder. Laminated slips, made with the same clip art seal, bank transfers from terrified neighbors into an account in her name. I'd been quiet while she made people pay. I'd watched her grow bold. And I'd been waiting for her to try this, for the moment she'd bring violence into my yard. Now the camera was live. I hit record, and the app pinged every neighbor on our group chat. "Call 911, someone typed. A minute later, real sirens, loud, real, started down the road. Karen's smile faltered, then snapped angry again. "You think a camera scares me?" she spat. "We'll bury you in fines." That's when I showed the other card I'd been holding, my old badge, the one I'd never advertised. "I'm not just a homeowner," I said quietly. "I used to work cases like yours." Her eyes flicked to the badge, then to the bank transfer receipts I waved. The sound of real deputies hitting the gravel swallowed her next threat. Her hand shook, the gun wobbling. She had one last moment to choose: keep pointing a weapon at a child and sink deeper, or try to sell a story about defending the community. She chose the wrong lie. The deputies rounded the yard, voices loud and commanding, and Karen tried to scream that it was all a mix-up. The camera had already sent the loop to the station, the neighbor with medical training was already at my daughter's side, and the woman who'd paid her cleaning fee 2 months ago had just walked up with bank statements. The whole thing collapsed at once. Fines, fake papers, the men she hired as enforcers, the cash hidden in envelopes. But this wasn't the end, it was the start of the reckoning I'd promised my daughter in my head the first night she told me she was afraid to play outside. I'd been patient for a reason. I had witnesses, footage, and a county clerk who owed me a favor. And more than that, I had a simple goal: make sure Karen's next address had bars and a number, and that she paid every penny she'd stolen back to the people she'd terrorized. They cuffed her on the porch while my daughter hugged my leg and watched, wide-eyed. Karen kept yelling, loud, messy threats about lawsuits and community safety, but the deputies already had her hands behind her. One of them held up a plastic bag with folded envelopes and cash. Another read out bank transfers that matched the dates on the fake fines I'd kept. The neighbor who'd been too scared to speak up for a year stepped forward and handed over a stack of receipts, every last hush payment she'd taken. "Where'd you get the enforcement team?" I asked as they led her to the cruiser. Her eyes darted, then landed on the mailbox where a battered business card had been taped for weeks. "Curtis," she whispered, as if that name would save her. The deputies looked at each other. "Curtis who?" asked one. She couldn't answer. By morning, the station had a full folder. Camera footage, witness statements, bank records, the fake notices, even the phone thread where she'd paid the men who showed up at my gate. The sergeant nodded at me across the table. "You didn't just catch a bully, you caught an operation." That afternoon, the DA's office called. They wanted to charge her with extortion, impersonation, and, because of the gun, attempted kidnapping. The emails flew faster than any rumor. Neighbors I'd barely said hello to were writing victim statements, one by one. Someone set up a small fund to repay everyone she'd nicked. Another person volunteered to sit with my daughter until the trial so she wouldn't be scared to go outside. Then came the twist I hadn't expected. While the deputies sorted through Karen's phone, a text popped up from an unknown number. "Burn everything, or we'll burn you." The text traced back to a developer in town with ties to the old HOA president. I felt the cold slide down my spine. Harrow has been buying up parcels for years. People whispered about him at church and at the feed store, but no one dared say his name loud. Now a trace on a phone put him in the middle of it. We didn't wait to be served a warning. The DA and sheriff moved quick. Deputies showed up at Harrow's office at dawn while his receptionist still had her coffee. They found invoices, wire transfers, and an account that paid cleanup crews that matched the uniforms worn by Karen's men. The twist: Harrow had been wiring money not from his own account, but from a trust labeled for community beautification projects. The county froze the accounts and slapped an emergency order on several property transfers. People who had been terrified to speak up suddenly texted their own receipts. The net was tightening. Harrow's denial was loud but thin. On camera, he claimed ignorance. "I paid contractors. I didn't know what they did." But then the DA played a voicemail from his assistant. "We need to Mitchell's property cleared. The lots around it are worthless until that cabin sells." The room went cold. He tried to buy land by burning trust, not building value. The second twist landed harder than any punch. Harrow had pushed one of the contractors to tell a reporter they were rehabilitating blighted areas, and the reporter's notes matched invoices found in Harrow's safe. The lies had a paper trail, and we followed it. That week, the neighborhood changed. People who once avoided eye contact now stood on porches and handed deputies bank statements. The little fund for victims turned into a legal coalition, folks pooling money to press the case. My daughter started sleeping without the nightlight. She drew a picture of our house and stuck it on the fridge like a flag. But Harrow didn't fold quietly. The county got an anonymous call threatening arson if they froze the accounts. Then late one night, someone tried to set fire to the stack of victim bank slips at the DA's evidence locker. The man was caught on a backlot camera, hood up, face covered, then ran when the lights flipped on. The twist nobody expected: the attacker left a receipt in the mud, an old Harrow & Company invoice for site cleanup. We were past neighborhood drama now. This was a dirty land grab with people who thought they could burn evidence and buy silence. I sat on the porch with my daughter and told her, "They think fear wins. We'll prove they're wrong." The camera on the eaves blinked red. The DA cleared her throat in my phone speaker. "Ready when you are. We go public. We go hard."
The next morning, the news vans were already lined up at the courthouse steps. Local developer and HOA president charged in multi-million-dollar fraud scheme. The anchor's voice echoed from car radios all down Main Street. Harrow had finally been charged, and Karen, now sitting in county jail, had agreed to testify. When they brought her into the courtroom, she looked nothing like the self-proclaimed queen of the neighborhood. Her hair was flat, her eyes dull, her hands shaking. The same woman who once screamed about keeping standards high now flinched at every camera flash. The DA called her first. "Tell the court what you did." Karen took a long breath, her voice barely steady. I collected fake fines. I sent the money to Mr. Harrow's office. He told me it was for maintenance and legal fees, but when I asked for paperwork, he said it was confidential. He told me if I didn't cooperate, I'd lose my house. The courtroom went silent. The DA nodded. "Did Mr. Harrow ever tell you to threaten the defendant?" Karen looked at me, for the first time, not with hate, but shame. "He said he'd send someone else if I couldn't handle it. I was scared, but I still did it. I pointed that gun. I thought fear would make him leave." My jaw tightened.